Do you sometimes feel like, oh, I can't stand up, I can't talk about that thing, I'm not good enough as an expert? Today, my conversation with an animal enrichment specialist is going to help you understand why it is important for you to share your story and share your expertise, because there might be change that you could instigate, but you're hiding your light under a bushel. Stay tuned.
You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘.
Hello there, my friend, and welcome back. If you're a returning listener, if you're new to me or the show, I'm 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘, your host on this conversational journey. Hopefully you know by now that this is the place where we unpick all the ways in which your personal brand meets the humans we serve. So today we are entering the world of animals. As you know, I am South African, so the natural world is kind of just baked into my soul. And today I'm really excited to introduce you to somebody who's working in a profession that works with animals, big and small. So this is going to add to my series where I'm talking to people from completely different expertise and fields, so that they come on and they share with you what their journey is like in terms of shaping a version of themselves that they're happy to share with the outside world and what that looks and feels like for them. So let me introduce you to my guest and we can dive straight in. Mark Kingston Jones is an animal enrichment specialist with a psychology degree and a deep focus on the welfare of the animals, enriching their environments and educating their keepers. On top of his extensive practical experience, he is also an enrichment advisor for the British and Irish Association of Zoos and Aquariums, Animal Behaviour and Training Working Group. Also an enrichment instructor for the American Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and an advisor for the Lakeview Monkey Sanctuary, which is here in the UK. He's led more than 30 environment enrichment courses for students wishing to enter into the industry, and he's delivered 36 keeper workshops so far around the USA, Europe, and the UK. If that isn't enough, he's also authored and co-authored 14 publications and presented 72 talks and workshops at conferences worldwide. This is on top of running the commercial business that he's founded with his friend Chris Hales in 2014 called Team Building with Bite, where they have so far delivered over 322 unique team building workshops to corporate teams who build enrichment devices for animals that need them and for keepers who are grateful for improving the life for their animals. Mark lives in East Sussex with his wife and young family. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, that was a long introduction. But at least I think your expertise comes through in terms of your subject matter, right? So let's kick off a little bit for our listeners and give them a bit of insight to your backstory, how you got to be sitting here today. Because honestly, what you do is really unusual for us people that sit in an office all day with a computer. So, and then maybe once we've done that, we can talk a little bit about how you're navigating marketing you and your business as well. So over to you.
Yeah, to be fair, it's a fairly unique profession, I think, in my industry as well, really. I get to do all the fun bits of the kind of the keeper job without being kind of, breaking my back every day. But yeah, no, I studied psychology at University of Stirling and very nearly quit because I decided I really wanted to focus on animals, and there was a lot of human attention in the psychology course. But I was really lucky. I got connected with a primatologist in the department, and she then helped me kind of get started doing some research. I'm an animal geek, so I started doing it in my summer holidays in my spare time, and it kind of led me to a job when I graduated that I wasn't really expecting. I was kind of offered it as a 3-month, can you just fill in and do this? And I was there for a year and a half, and then moved on to my next collection, and it just kind of grew from there. I'd always planned to go and become a keeper because I wanted to do that hands-on with animals, but for most keepers, they don't get to do the research side, and that's something that I'm really fascinated with as well, the whole kind of behaviour aspect. So I ended up going down the education and research route, and eventually it kind of led my boss to going, I need the keepers to like me. What can I do to make them like me? And I was like, well, give them stuff, give them free things. You can't give beer when they're working because that's not good health and safety, but you can give them things that they need for their job. So I started doing kind of small enrichment workshops with members of the public, and then we started doing corporate ones. From a very clinical point of view, myself and my business partner Chris had lots of ideas. We had no time, we had no money. We were like, who's got time and money? Corporate people. So it started slightly kind of clinical and, taking advantage of the situation. And we realized very quickly how much the people were getting out of it as well. And so we really kind of dug down on that over the years, and we ended up taking voluntary redundancy 11 years ago now. And we've never looked back, and it's been an amazing ride, really.
Should we just define, I just thought of this now actually, because I know what it means, but maybe the listeners might know, but enrichment. So when we talk about animal enrichment, what does that mean?
So the simplest way of describing it is things like feeding devices and enclosure furniture. It's a lot more in depth than that. It's basically providing animals with mental and psychological opportunities to express natural behaviours, to exercise. A bit like if you've got pets at home, you kind of give them the kind of the Kong feeders and the puzzle bowls and things.
Licky mats.
So, exactly right. Yeah, if you've got an animal that will devour its highly processed dinner in 30 seconds, and we know if you gobble your dinner at home,
bad for their stomach
afterwards. Yeah, it's terrible. So it's ways of getting them thinking and working for their food as they would do in the wild, or exercising and enjoying themselves. A sense of comfort as well is part of the enrichment process. It's not just providing a spot to sleep, it's providing opportunities to choose where they sleep. Is it a warm spot, is it a cool spot? There's when you really dig into it, there's so much opportunity there, but it's we give it this kind of simple term of enrichment, which is actually terrible branding, because it sounds like an extra, it sounds like an add-on, and the whole point of what we're doing is proving that this is a critical part of life, that animals need this to have good welfare. But it's a word that's stuck over the years, and it's one we still use.
But I think through the education bits that you do and the word that you're spreading, I think as long as that's happening, I think it happens across other industries, isn't it, where words just don't quite encapsulate the importance or necessity of some things. So I think the work you do is important anyway. So let's chat a little bit about physically. So what I thought I'd do is kind of give you what my understanding is of what you guys do, so I can see whether I've understood it correctly, and then you can tell me. And I thought by me doing that might give the listeners a bit of an idea of actually what your value proposition is, right? And then we'll get into the magic of what it is that you, Mark, bring to the table as well. So from my understanding, you're essentially animal enrichment professionals, and you provide a planned team building activity that's based at one of the zoos, safari parks, or sanctuary venues that you've pre-approved around the UK. And the crux of it is that it's an activity workshop. So the client brings their team over to you or to the venue, and you coach them through designing, planning, and either partly or wholly building these enrichment devices for the animals, right? And then the client's delegates then have to learn, in terms of what they get out of it, they have to learn how to communicate and collaborate, but they also need to understand their impact on the animals as well that they're building for. Does that sum it up right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ish.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think every one of our workshops that we run is different, because if we just did the same thing again and again, it actually wouldn't be great animal welfare. And it is a hard one to sum up, but I think that is it. Most of the time when the clients come, the design work is done, but when we have longer workshops, especially if we've got professionals that are a bit more creative, we can allow them some design work too. And then like you're saying, sometimes we've done a little bit of the prep work. So we did one just the other week where we actually had a lemur enclosure that we went in the morning, we installed a load of poles, and then we had a group of 90 people from 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦 that kind of came along for 2 hours, built all of the furniture, and then while they had their afternoon meeting, we went and put all those bits of furniture onto the poles we'd installed, and then they came down for the grand reveal at the end of the day to kind of to finish off their day and just watch the lemurs come and enjoy their efforts, basically. And that's the key bit, is that seeing the animals come and use the stuff. I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years and I still get a little
buzz.
And so for somebody who's normally sitting behind a desk and, you know, doesn't get to make stuff for lemurs every day, or, you know, tigers, or, you know, even the small cryptic species that they've never heard of, just sort of watching them kind of interact with something is it's an amazing thing to share with people, and we love doing it.
Did you say when we had our prep conference, because I said, has anybody ever gone, right, I resign, I don't want to do this corporate job anymore, I want to come and work with Mark? Did you say there was somebody who said, oh my gosh, I didn't realise I'd really love to do this at work? Or
yeah, there was a lady that literally, the primates came out and started interacting with what they'd made, and she literally just burst into tears and said it was the best job satisfaction she'd ever experienced, which was in front of her boss as well, which was an interesting move. So yeah, I think there are a few people who've sort of said, you know, how do we do this? And I say we've kind of got to it through a very twisted path. So I'm not even sure I could lay out a road.
There's a straight line. No,
yeah, it's not. But no, it's an amazing, and it's a privilege to kind of share that with people and see them, you know, do something that they would never have done before.
Oh, it's lovely. So if we lift above the doing, I think what I like is that you guys have found this nice little cross section between these three areas. If we visualize a nice 3-circle Venn diagram where we've got sustainability, corporate social responsibility, and then this animal welfare element, I think what you have is this really unique take on team building that not only works for the company, the attendees, the environment, the animals, but also the keepers who care for the animals as well. Do you think that fits nicely kind of where you think you're sitting, or do you think there's more to it?
I think our aim has always been that everybody wins, you know, especially since kind of becoming self-employed. We kind of it's really nice we actually get described as Keeper Christmas, because we do just turn up with these gifts and just hand them over, and, you know, then we kind of walk away and they're theirs to keep. And yeah, from the sustainability angle, we don't make stuff that's disposable. We've still got things that are in enclosures being used 10 years later that, you know, animals are still using regularly. So it's really nice occasionally we'll bump into keepers and go, oh, you know, how was that working out? How long did it last? And they're like, oh, we still use it every day, like, or, you know, most days or whatever. And I think the corporate social responsibility one is critical for us, because that's what most of our clients are really looking for. I think we've had a real good kind of the last 2 years, particularly. I think post-COVID, that CSR angle is really important to a lot of people, and so I think that's really helped us. And yeah, we don't want to be one of those kind of greenwashing or, you know, welfare washing things. We for us, we want to know that we've walked away making a difference, both to the people who've had a go, but also to the animals that we've kind of left the stuff for. And I think that positions us pretty perfectly, really.
Nice. And also, when we talked before, we were talking about this element for a lot of team building offers that are out there. They're very training led or facilitator led, and it's usually like CIPD of that kind of ilk, right? Ilk, not elk. But what I liked about you guys is that, and you're a little bit. It felt like while we were talking about it, we were trying to like navigate this thin line between what you do and what you don't do, which I think is important, because I think what you guys add as a team is very different to a trainer or facilitator-led type of team environment. So I want to talk a little bit about, because of this element that you actually enrichment professionals, i.e. animal professionals, not human professionals, I think that adds to experience for the delegates. So can you share for us a little bit with the listeners how you bring that animal experience and know-how and sense to benefit that experiential learning, if you like, of the participants?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we do approach it probably very differently, and I mean that's again from some of the participants, we're not very corporate, and for some people that's a really good thing, and for some people it's, you know, not a good thing kind of. Sorry, so for some people it is a good thing, for some people it's not. But it's
what they're looking for.
Exactly, yeah. And I think we are, you know, we're animal people, but we're behaviour people, so we love people watching, and when you see people engaged in making the things for the animals. Most of the time we go through this roller coaster of emotions when people come in, because they generally don't know what they're doing. They've been told it has the title of team building, so people kind of walk in and their faces are dropped because they've had previous experiences of corporate team building where they're like, oh God, something awful is going to happen and I'm going to look like an idiot. And then we kind of, they then see, you know, drills and saws and, you know, bits of timber on the table, and they're like, oh, this is going to be bad. And then we tell them they're going to make something for animals, and you see their faces lift, which is really nice. And then we show them the animal, and hopefully we get a really good response from that. Sometimes it's a slightly confused response if they don't recognize the animal. And then there's this moment of like, oh, okay, this is going to be all right. Then we show them what they're going to build, which is usually, thanks to my colleague Chris, like a beautiful 3D SketchUp kind of that rotates around and shows.
He's so smart.
And it's amazing that was a benefit of COVID for us. Chris learned to use SketchUp, and it has just changed our business. Then their faces really drop, and they're like, oh no God, this is what we were expecting this is going to be. We can't do this. We're not DIY.
We're not professionals.
Yeah. Especially the lemur one the other day, because it was like we showed the final piece that all 90 people were going to contribute towards. They were just like, what? We're like, no, you're only building a component part of this. It's okay. And so there's this kind of panic, and then we split people into groups, and there's nervous conversation, and then kind of people start picking bits up and kind of going, oh, maybe we can get through this together, and then you kind of get this gentle kind of empowerment all the way through. And especially a lot of people assume it's, big burly blokes that want to come and, use drills and saws that do our workshops. The vast majority are not. They're ladies, kind of between, I don't know, say 20 and 70, actually, I think was their oldest, who a lot of them say, oh, I've never used a drill. My husband does that. Or, haven't had an opportunity to
try it out.
Slightly terrified, which is, fair enough. And it's kind of like, well, just, we're not going to force you to have a go, but if you want to have a go, this is how it works. This is how to do it safely. And you kind of, the first screw is difficult, and then the second one gets easier and easier. And by the end, they're kind of waving the drill around, and they're like, actually, I'm going to go, I don't know what I was scared of. I'm going to go buy one of these and go build some furniture at home.
My husband will be very pleased.
Yeah, well, no, a lot of people, everybody who says my husband always does this, we always make sure we get a photo of them using it, so we've got evidence to present and go, I did this. Some of the husbands are like, don't take photos of me, because if my wife sees this, she's going to ask me to build something when I go home, and it's kind of the opposite effect. But there's just some real beautiful moments. And if there are people in the group who are more confident, you get some really nice mentoring, and you get some really nice kind of, we always, as part of the brief, we want to know why they're getting the group together. And obviously at the moment, a lot of it is you've got remote teams that are siloed, and they don't talk to each other, and it's, so you want to build. Let's get a lot more of that, hey?
Let's get a lot more of that now.
Yeah, but it's nice because then we've got to design a build that's going to keep people busy, but not so busy they don't have time to talk to each other while they're doing it, sort of thing. Nice. If it's too intense, they're not talking to each other. They're really focused on, oh my God, we've got to get this done.
I feel like team building, like we were saying before about enrichment, I think team building again gets a really bad rap. And I think it's a really old phrase as well, because now, like you've just raised, we've got so many more complexities in the workplace, and actual rapport building and just pure relationship building, which doesn't happen anymore because you're not just sitting at a desk next to someone or having lunch with them every day. Yeah. That kind of works for the offer that you've got, is that, you get to eyeball people and spend a day with them.
And see a little bit of vulnerability and outside of what you would normally see. But also I think that, we do occasionally get people who are a bit like, oh, I don't want to engage, I don't want to get involved right now. But because it's for the animals, it draws them in. No corporate group has ever put this in a written review, but we're supposed to be a very good hangover cure. Occasionally we're the morning after the night before. And you get people kind of coming in, slightly hanging and kind of, not in a very good state because they've enjoyed the free bar or whatever, but it obviously, slightly unfortunately sets the mood of the initial bit, but people do kind of then, because they've got something to engage.
God, I hope that's not every workshop, Mark. I find it really depressing.
There's a couple of places that have accommodation that we work with, so they're kind of they do the business stuff on the first day, then they have the night, and then they come to us in the morning. But,
except you need to tell them that they're going to have to operate drills. So could they please not drink?
There is a line of health and safety. Like if you're still drunk, you're not coming in.
You're not going to come.
But no, I mean there was a beautiful moment once we had it was a huge one. It was about 70 people, and we had one guy slept in, and he kind of turned up a little bit late, so he just basically kind of turned up, and people were like, "Oh, here's a drill, get on with it," kind of thing. And he was just like, he wasn't really very engaged in the whole activity. And at one point, I kind of went over to him and said, and he's like, "Why are we doing this? You're building platforms that we're going to take them to the monkeys, and you're going to get." And he's like, "Well, this is actually going to get used." And I was like, yeah. And it was just this magic, like it was this before and after shot of this guy who had a late night, had slept in and was just not interested. And then he suddenly realized what he was doing had a purpose, and he just switched, and he suddenly was one of the most engaged people on the team. And it was just, I wish I'd recorded that. I need that as evidence, but like, you know, it's great. It's something different, and it just gets people pulled in. I think we've only ever had one person out of thousands that's ever said, no, this isn't.
I'm not doing this.
This isn't my bag. I'm just going to stand back and watch.
How about you go make the tea then?
She just said, this is man stuff and I'm not interested. And
man
we had
stuff.
No, Jen, that was her exact words. And we actually had like 3 of our assistants on that build were females. And I was like, I'm not going over there because it's just going to prove the point.
It's going to feed into the point.
You go over there and be like, you know, I'm a lady, I'm doing this is fun. And they all tried, and she was just like, no. Not
having it.
And that's fine. You know, I'll take that as a statistic. 1 out of 1,000 is okay.
People.
You can't please everybody, right?
No. So let's turn the lens now a little bit more to the industry that you're in, and also how you're finding navigating yourself in the business, marketing yourself in the business as well. And I want to dig into a little bit that we touched on in our prep conversation, and that's this element of having people in your field or industry who are really smart, highly proficient, experts, and they're really a force to be reckoned with what they're doing, but they just don't get enough exposure, you know, and they don't get to give as much of an impact as they should be and not recognized. So can we talk a little bit about this challenge that you've noticed is recurring in your field, and how you feel about communicating and marketing yourself, because you have to get up on stages as a speaker and you also have to lead workshops. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting challenge, and we, you know, again, we're honest with people. We're animal people, and there's, you know, a running joke in the kind of the community that animal people are animal people because they don't want to work with humans, basically. So yeah, you end up with a lot of people who don't want to work with people working with each other, and it's a very kind of highly charged environment. And it is, as you say, it's a very skilled job. Like, you can't just walk off the street and become an animal keeper, you know, especially with some of these more dangerous and more, you know, more big endangered animals. It's dangerous. You know, people take risks, and people, you know, have to really commit themselves. It's a profession, not a job kind of thing, if that's the right turn of phrase. But because people are a bit more naturally introverted, they don't necessarily push themselves forward. They don't necessarily kind of communicate themselves. You know, it's not something they're trained to do necessarily as part of their courses. And it's hard for them to kind of be seen and be taken seriously. It's also very underpaid as a profession, considering the skill level that you need. You know, you need a degree to do it, but you don't earn enough to ever pay off your degree if you just have, you know, the
one job.
And it's tough. And yeah, we've definitely had to work hard to overcome that. And both Chris and I are kind of that fake it till you make it kind of thing. When we're on, we come out, we present, we try and be kind of loud and kind of engaging, and then we have to go back to a dark room and decompress at the end of the day.
Shiver and get over it.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I don't want to talk to anybody for at least 2 hours because I just need to, you know, I just force myself completely out of my comfort zone. But that's the thing for me with animals, is it's worth it for me to put on that kind of show, you know, of myself and get and engage with people and talk to people, and I'm one of those people where if you're talking to me about animals, I love sharing my passion for animals. If you start small talk with me about sports or something else, I just like, I don't know.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I think this is the challenge, though, isn't it? Is that at least with you and Chris, you've figured this out and go, look, I'm going to have to push through the discomfort, because if I don't do the thing about standing on that stage and speaking, you're almost speaking for the animals. You're almost pushing the education of what's important for the benefit of the animals, and you're pushing through that discomfort. The challenge with people who don't want to be in the limelight and don't want to speak up and be heard is that I worry about, you know, the good change and impact that they could have in the world just won't happen because they're staying silent. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's the worrying bit, isn't it?
No, 100%.
And also you mentioned there's been a bit of a a skills drain from your industry as well since COVID.
Yes.
So that can't be helpful either.
No, I think obviously, COVID happened. A lot of people reevaluated, their life situations. And again, for a lot of animal jobs, you have to move away from home. You're not earning a huge amount of money, so you're kind of not as connected with your family, for example. And
periods of time.
Yeah, and I think the whole thing with animals is that people, you're doing it because you love them, not for the money. So sometimes that can get taken advantage of if places are looking at, am I paying my keepers a huge amount of money because they're doing an amazing job, or am I putting this money into another part of the business? Then it almost makes sense not to pay the keepers more, because if there's conservation work or there's other work that's being done, that it should be going into that. And we've had that conversation a lot, like when it comes to kind of doing training and things. People are like, we have this kind of every couple of years we have a cycle of people going, oh, can you come and do some courses for us? And we're like, yes, this is how much it's going to cost. And I'm like, well, that's really expensive. And I'm like, but if we can do it for free, but then we're not earning money to support our families, and or building our business, which is then helping more animals. So it's kind of like there's that expectation that you shouldn't be charging a lot of money because it's you're doing it for the good of the animals. And me and Chris have done so much volunteer work over the years. I think you've done your time, though. You've done your time. And if I'm honest, my aim is to earn enough money in the future that I can do more.
Of course. I think this is the challenge, though, with training in general, regardless of industry, is that there is this misperception, because they don't realize when you put that training together how much time it takes to put the training together. Then your expertise that needs to go into the information that's in the training. You're trying to think about the delegates and their learning outcomes to make sure that they're actually ticking the boxes of getting what you're teaching them. So I think a lot of the time people don't actually value training, and they don't understand. I think, well, you're just going to stand there talking for a day, so surely you can do that for 200 quid. It's like, well, yeah, if you want me to not talk about anything of any worth at all, and you're going to feed me all day. But I think that's a general challenge with training.
No, definitely. And I think for us as well, because what they want us to do is not necessarily talk, but come and teach with tools and materials. It's like, well, we have to bring those materials,
and there's cost
and pay for them. It's kind of it's a hard one.
Especially when you're working with your big animals and that, there's a lot more to it than just bringing a textbook and paper, isn't it? Yeah.
A polar bear makes short work of that.
How would you define a subject matter expert? Because I feel like in your industry you must have a lot of them. Do you have a little definition in your mind of who you would see as a good subject matter expert? What does that look like?
I think I always feel uncomfortable with people if they say I'm an expert. I always feel uncomfortable with that, because I feel like I know a lot, but I don't feel
the
like
word.
I am. It's but again, that's just my personal sort of the way I am. But I think it's having that knowledge, but also having that willingness to listen to other people's point of views, and always learn. I know we kind of talked before, like the one name that just everybody synonymous with animals is David Attenborough, and he is just you can't not describe him as an expert. He's so knowledgeable, he's so engaging, he's able to get that knowledge across to the biggest audience.
He's a good communicator
possible,
as well.
100%. But he's also actually very willing to discuss and always kind of learn more. It's like kind of, and I think that openness to keep learning and not just go, right, well, I've reached this level and I'm I'm not taking on board any new information, and this is what I think that's sometimes you get a problem with experts in the animal field, is that they kind of, this is what I know, this is what I'm going to teach as a blanket, and our industry is constantly changing, and it's keeping up to date with that and being flexible and going, actually the way that we did things 5 years ago has moved on, and we can deal with that, but we've got to be open to dealing with it, if that makes sense.
Nice. No, I completely agree with all that. I think what I'd like to know now is, with you having to do your talks, so you've had to go and speak at conferences as well, and you're very good with your LinkedIn content as well. So I feel like you are shaping a version of yourself that you are happy to take out into the world. Yes, you might have to defrag and go and hide in a dark corner sometimes to cover. But I think that you're kind of getting there. So I was just wondering, like, what would you describe the concept of personal brand, and how do you feel you're faring with shaping your own?
I think it's taken a while to kind of get there for me, but I think it is. I think a huge part of for me is the trust. What we do involves an enormous amount of trust and maintaining that trust. But also I think a level of ethics as well, because the people that we're working with, particularly actually the corporate clients, you know, they need to know that if we're taking them somewhere, it's because we, you know, as you said, we kind of pre-allocate where we work with, because we want to know, you know, what their background is, what they're doing kind of behind the scenes and stuff. So I think that whole kind of trust and ethics thing is a big part for me. I think there's
reputation.
Reputation. I've read a lot of things over the years about, this is how you should put yourself out on LinkedIn, and this is how you should kind of portray yourselves. And I think I tried once or twice, and it didn't fit comfortably with me. And I was like, well, I'm just going to do it my way, and if it doesn't work, you know, it's my loss. But I feel like now I've got to the point, especially on like LinkedIn, where it's, you know, the people that follow me, the people that engage with me, know me, and, you know my character, and know that I'm not going to be, you know, putting out like big grand kind of, you know, this is what you should do, this is how you should do it kind of thing. It's just, I'm sharing this, I'm sharing that. I don't know. Does that kind of make sense?
No, it does make sense. No. And the whole thing about personal brand is that it's got to be you, and it's got to be comfortable. So it actually doesn't matter what other people say you should do. It doesn't, because you won't be comfortable. And so until you're comfortable, you won't open up, you won't communicate, you won't even want to be vulnerable because you're uncomfortable. So I think you found a nice crux where, and you've got a nice following on LinkedIn as well. So that means, you know, hopefully there's more people seeing your content, because ultimately your objective and your goal is to educate more people about the importance of what you're doing. So however which way you can do that serves your purpose, doesn't it?
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So there's one question I like to ask everybody, and it's this bit about when you're in the flow, right? So when you're in this ventral vagal nervous system where everything's buzzing and the, you know, time is just disappearing, you know, what does that look and feel like for you?
I think for me, because I have quite a split of the way that I work, so when we kind of like, we go through a process when we're looking for new ideas for animals, we kind of go through this brainstorming process, and when we're just kind of throwing out ideas and just coming up with new designs, and it gets really exciting when you kind of you hit something and it's starting to come together. And again, the beauty of SketchUp is we can actually put it down now and physically see it starting to come together, which is a really cool aspect. And I think that again, the fun bit for me is that challenge is never going to end. You know, people say, oh, you know, you're going to run out of ideas at some point. I'm like, well, we've done over 300 workshops, and we're still coming up with new bits and pieces, and because of our clients are giving us that opportunity. But the other, when I'm really in the flow, if I go out into an enclosure and I've got a set amount of time, I've got a set amount of resources, and it's like, this space is a blank canvas, you can do within reason, obviously, as long as it's safe and as long as it works, whatever you like. And I just kind of start somewhere, and I just kind of grow organically over the day, you know, or over the time period. And it's like, I deliberately force myself not to have a final picture in my head, because if I do, I'll be disappointed, because my what my brain would like to see is I can't achieve physically, my body wouldn't cope with that kind of thing. No. But it's just kind of feeling that organic and going, oh, I'm going to go this way, I'm going to go that way, and it just, for me, it just, I can just switch off and not worry about anything else that's going on, and it feels. And then luckily for me, I get to hopefully watch the animals come out and use what I've done, and hopefully use it in a way that I expected, or sometimes in a way I completely didn't expect, but, you know, might even be better kind of thing. So it's an amazing reinforcer.
I think it's where you get to play with your creativity. And Drew Davis is a speaker I love listening to around marketing and AI, but he's always talked about what he calls the cube of creativity, because people who don't understand creativity will, for example, say to a graphic designer, oh, I want X, whatever it is, a leaflet. And just do whatever you want to do. But actually that is not very helpful from a creative perspective.
Yeah.
The more boundaries you put into it and make it into a cube, if you like, and say, well, you can only operate within this space, like you're designing within a space, it actually makes your brain completely fizzle and pop and go, okay, so I've only got this, so what could I do? As opposed to giving somebody a blank page. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
that makes sense with your designing spaces.
Yeah, and we do have it. We get people, because we do design, brand new things as well. People go, oh, you just tell us what budget you need. I'm like, no, don't do that, because me and Chris will go way. Unleash your imagination. Okay, well, I hope you've got millions, because this is not going to,
It's not going to end well.
No, and then it's also disappointing when you go, oh, we're really excited about this idea, and you take it back to them, and it's like, well, this is like 20 grand over budget. Well, if you told us that you had a budget, we would have worked to that. So it's,
yes,
I absolutely see that. It's having I need those constraints, because
otherwise it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark. I've had so much fun. Thank you so much for finding a lull in your travelling around the country that we got to actually talk today. I think I love, what I love most about your story is that it sounds to me that, like, throughout your career, you've just really held fast to your values, and that trust has always been at the heart of how you build your relationships and in how you do the actual work that you do. And I realise that you've got massive systemic challenges in your industry, and I just hope that you and Chris both continue with the determination that you have in keeping to spread that message wide and far. And the only way an industry can change is from the inside, right? Mm-hmm. So don't give up. Also, I think that the kind of activities you're doing with the corporates that you work with, it's not only helping them with their internal communication and their relationships, but I think you're also managing to bit by bit educate more and more people around the importance of this animal enrichment and welfare topic as well. So if anybody is listening today that would like to learn more about you and Chris and Team Building with Byte, where can they find you?
So the website, teambuildingwithbyte.com, is kind of the main source will feed into everything else. But also LinkedIn. I love kind of sharing regular, if you like, regular updates and photos and videos of animals doing all sorts of things, just to lighten up your feed. Then I think, LinkedIn is the place to find me, basically. But it's those two. We also have a very active Instagram and TikTok, but that's Chris's domain. I don't play on that. I'm too old to play on that side. He's actually older than me, but he's young at heart. So.
He's young at heart. All right. I'll pop those all into the show, mate. So thank you so much, Mark.
No worries. Thank you very much.
And that's it for this episode, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. What stuck with you after hearing what Mark does for work? Does it challenge what you thought was possible? What I love about Mark is his constant striving to improve, his drive to keep learning, and his humbleness, which has been hard won in that he doesn't know it all, but he does know a damn sight more than the average Joe. Mark and I talked a bit about knowing where your lines begin and end as a professional or an expert in an area. For me, I feel like if you are honest about where those lines are, it becomes easier to talk more boldly in public about your subject area and suffer less from imposter syndrome, or in my case, just pure self-doubt. If anything gets my back up, it's people who stray away outside of their lines of expertise, and it causes other better experienced people to be drowned out by louder, less qualified noisemakers. Mark shared that there's this prevalence of introverts in his field, and this is partly due to why people who are super smart and could make a huge difference in their field are not visible, don't get recognized, and quite possibly don't have as much impact as they could, which is a shame. I think that after talking to Mark, I'm much more determined than ever to get the message across that by taking the time to reflect on your talents and your genius gifts and how to express those well and in a way that's comfortable for you, which is important, is time well spent. Mark's note about how skills for his field are just draining out of the UK since COVID, and that systemically there is a lot to fix in the world of animal care and welfare, says to me that there's a lot of self-reflection needed on how we in the UK are preserving our natural world and nurturing our future keepers. Part of the work that you do with personal brand strategy is about embracing your strengths and gaining clarity on how your uniqueness sets you apart from others in your field. Heck, it even comes down to, are you a change maker? And are you being irresponsible by hiding your light under a bushel? Then, of course, the work begins on learning how to articulate that better and put yourself in positions where you're better seen, heard, understood, and recognized. If you're curious about doing this work with me, let's have a relaxed conversation about it. My details are in the show notes. Who do you know that could do with hearing this conversation and Mark's story? Share this episode. You know you want to. Until next time, my friend, stay strong. Believe you have value and make good brand decisions.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘𝗟𝗟.com.